Good evening. I regret that I can't be there with you tonight at the celebratory dinner, but the Keystone team has asked me to say a few words about the history of the organization. As most of you know, I'm busy writing the book on the history of the symposium, and I'm going to excerpt a few passages from that in my little presentation tonight. Just over 50 years ago, what is now the Keystone Symposium on Molecular and Cellular Biology held its first meeting under the auspices of the Molecular Biology Institute of UCLA at what was then known as the Squaw Valley Ski Resort in the Sierra Nevada mountains of California. It utilized the ski meeting format that had its origins in informal gatherings in Europe and had been successfully employed by at least one other US-based organization a few years earlier. The subject of the meeting was membrane biology, and it was organized by C. Fred Fox. There was no formal organization supporting this effort, but Fox did attract financial support from the ICN Corporation, a local biopharma company, through his colleague Robert Smith, a professor of chemistry at UCLA. This association with the private sector sponsor at the very beginning set in place a tradition that was to become one of the principal hallmarks of the symposium. Indeed, it was this recognition that there is an important synergy between industry and academia in driving translational advances in molecular and cellular biology that has set the symposia apart from other conferences. The success of this first conference inspired Fox to run 2 meetings the next year, another on membrane biology and one on virology, and the UCLA Symposium on Molecular and Cellular Biology was effectively born. Over the first 10 years, with ICN providing continued support, Fox increased the symposium's offerings to an average of 4 to 6 meetings a year on topics including molecular biology, immunology, cell biology, and cancer. These 6 topics provided the core for the program that is still evident in the greatly expanded slate of today's list of conferences. In 1977, the original venue in California closed for renovations, and the symposium made the newly opened Keystone Resort in Colorado its primary meeting site, presaging its eventual home. After 1981, ICN bowed out, and Fox, following the advice of Ron Cape of CEDIS, shifted the sponsorship strategy to one where companies could support individual meetings, thus providing new opportunities for expanding their sponsorship base. Beginning in 1982, CEDIS led the way, supporting 1 meeting that year and 2 the next year. This commitment was followed by the addition of ARCO Plant Cell Research Institute, Burroughs Wellcome, Dow Chemical, Ortho Pharmaceuticals, and Shearing as meeting sponsors in 1984. In 1985, more than half of the 15 meetings hosted by the symposia had designated sponsors. Importantly, by this point, Fox also had established a broader network of smaller corporate donors, numbering some 40 contributors. This new strategy provided the wherewithal to further increase the number of meetings per year, but also created the need for increased input in terms of programming ideas. Accordingly, at the same time as the new sponsorship scheme was adopted, Fox created the symposium board consisting of 8 members, 4 shown here and 4 in this slide, which were about equally divided between industry and academia. This group helped guide the continued development of the symposia for the next 5 years. In 1986, with the designated sponsorship program now well established, Fox decided to significantly increase the size of the board to 20 members. The lion's share of these appointments were biotech big pharma executives, who now represented 70% of the total, reflecting the fact that the individual sponsorship had risen to the same level. Fox brought the board to 24 the next year by mainly adding academics, and it would remain at that size until the symposium moved to Colorado in 1990. The broad distribution of industry members with their varied focus on different medical issues was essential in keeping the symposium programming at the cutting edge of discovery with clinical impacts. Starting in 1986, Fox also began the practice of doubling up sponsors for a particular meeting, and this eventually led to the creation of the Directors Fund, where multiple donors contributed funds that were not earmarked for any given meeting and could be applied to meetings needing additional support. In particular, the Directors Fund became a new mechanism by which Keystone Symposia was able to support new ideas when the importance of the topic hadn't been established yet, enabling the organization to forge new frontiers in science and medicine. By 1990, the last year that the symposia was associated with UCLA, over a third of the meetings were supported wholly or in part from the Directors Fund. Designated sponsorship, as well as unrestricted giving to support the Directors Fund, remain an integral part of the symposia's fiscal structure today. In the spring of 1990, UCLA proposed to turn the management of the symposium over to its business enterprise division, and a meeting of the symposium board was called to discuss the situation. Subsequently named the Ad Hoc Advisory Committee, which consisted of about half of the full board, this group voted unanimously to instead hand the operation of the symposia to the Keystone Center, a nonprofit organization based in Keystone, Colorado. Originally, the newly created Keystone Symposia was to be loosely affiliated with the center, functioning under its own 501c3 designation and run by an executive committee with Fox as interim director and the former symposium board becoming the board of directors. However, partly as a result of questions raised during the search for the new director the following year, the symposia was instead incorporated into the center as an operating division, and the board of directors became the scientific advisory board. Subsequently, this group was reorganized in a process that saw 9 retirements from the old UCLA board and 17 new appointments, bringing the total for the Keystone Scientific Advisory Board to 41. This group was further subdivided into an executive committee and a program committee, the latter having 11 members and being charged with aiding the director in formulating the initial draft of each year's program. The SAB at this point was about 2/3 composed of private sector people and kept this distribution during the remaining time the symposium was part of the Keystone Center, growing to 55 members. When the symposia separated from the center in 1997, the Executive Management Committee was renamed the Board of Directors with 8 members. Over the next 25 years, operating as an independent 501c3 organization, Keystone Symposia approximately doubled the size of the board, the SAB, and the number of meetings per year. The board now has 18 members, and the SAB has over 110 members, about evenly divided between industry and academic government. The pre-pandemic slate of meetings for the last year of operation, 2019, was 59 as compared to 37 in 1997. Keystone Symposium, in its 50-year lifetime, has hosted nearly 1,600 meetings attended by an estimated 350,000 participants. Of course, while these numbers document the phenomenal growth of the symposium, they don't really capture the true essence of the organization or its accomplishments as a leader in scientific communication and innovation. They also don't capture the extraordinary commitment of the hundreds of scientists who have freely volunteered their time and energy, and the dedicated staff who have labored, sometimes under challenging conditions, to together make Keystone Symposium what it is today. Happy birthday, Keystone Symposia.